God told us to subdue the earth, but he gave that mandate to the family, and we give that mandate today to the corporation. The corporation is primarily the entity through which we subdue things. It's not any longer the family. This is what I'm saying is it's kind of becoming anti-family. Today, the pattern is almost perfectly inverted. Most adults spend the majority of their waking hours working with genetic strangers inside corporate teams. The family estate, once the center of production, education, welfare, elder care, and culture making, has now been reduced to a consumption and storage unit. The most ambitious projects are now almost exclusively corporate projects. The family rarely stewards anything that outlasts a single generation. A funeral is often the first and only remaining multi-generational family project most of us ever undertake. And shortly before that funeral, we tend to suddenly realize and regret the decision we made to exchange corporate time for family time. I was kind of struck by that idea that when I think about a multi-generational family, when adult siblings have to actually get together and do a productive activity, a shared project, usually the best example of that is the funeral for their parents. And obviously they're very out of practice. And so oftentimes that can be contentious, but it's interesting that imagine if that was normal. Imagine if we didn't have these corporations. And so you were looking around, who can I trust long-term and who is going to be around multi-generationally, who can pass this project on so that it continues to bear fruit and does its mission. You would begin to think about your children, your grandchildren, your siblings. Yes, you could partner with other families, but obviously for continuity's sake, and even in many family businesses, we've got a few multi-generational family businesses in our family, our extended family. And what I've noticed for each one, if they last like 100 years, usually they end up in the hands of a single family. They might start with multiple family members spread out, and then they eventually collapse back down into one family. Now, I think that kind of structure is normal. But the problem is that most of us, when we think about the most productive years of our life, the most intense economic activity we're ever going to participate in, it's going to be through one of these entities. And it's fascinating to me that we can just design and create an entity. If you've ever created an LLC, for example, or a 501c3 or some kind of entity, you file with the state and it becomes this thing. A thing comes into existence that kind of is the thing that's ultimately responsible, and only that can be sued. Only that entity is the thing responsible for accomplishing the mission. And so it makes the ability to gather investors, having non-related people cooperate on a single action or a single mission or a single economic activity. You can do that through an entity. It can be sold, things like that. So what this gives rise to is the amoral or maybe even the immoral corporation. Even when a corporation is led by faithful Christians, structural pressures push it away from transcendent ends. A publicly traded company has a legal fiduciary duty to maximize shareholder value. Any decision that places family, faith, Sabbath, local communities, or the natural world above profit can be and sometimes has been successfully sued as a breach of duty. The logic is implacable. If you want to pursue value other than return on equity, do it on your own time with your own dime. Private companies have more freedom, but even there, the incentives are toward perpetual growth, which requires constant reinvestment. The family that owns the firm is tempted to treat the firm as an idol that must never die, rather than a stewardship that should eventually pass to sons and daughters. In a recent discussion, I wondered whether the basis of greed is the desire to own something beyond your family's ability to properly steward. By this definition, corporations can never be greedy. You can just swap out a lower performing management team for a better one. In this drive to grow, what is greed in an entity that's designed to constantly grow and actually has a fiduciary responsibility to provide the largest possible return that it can to its stakeholders? In this sense, the corporation achieves a kind of immortality that no family can match. Families die out, corporations can be sold, merged, recapitalized forever. Too big to fail is to declare that a corporate entity has achieved a kind of eternal life.